Hey, what's going on, my beautiful viewers? And I am back once again to answer some more Overlord questions. Yes, everyone, I apologize. I know it's been a while. I got caught up in a lot of personal commitments. One of my very good friends is getting married soon, and so we have been involved in all the wedding planning and event planning and everything like that. I'm very happy about that. But of course, stuff like that takes up a lot of time, so I've been involved in that process. And then also, I don't know if you guys saw my community post, but I was preparing to make videos on the Overlord Holy Kingdom movie that I thought was coming out on the 20th, and it turns out it's not coming to my section of the world until November 8th. So yeah, kind of my whole plan got derailed there. So this is kind of panic content that I was planning to do a little bit later, but I'm moving it up the schedule. I'm just going to go and do another regular Q&A. The last Q&A I did was solely dedicated to a lot of great super thankers that we had on the channel. Wanted to give them their stars. Donating is not something you have to do in order to get your question answered. So I want to make sure that I'm still answering the questions in the regular comments. So you guys probably know how this works by now, but in case it's your first time tuning in, basically I just go through the comments section of some of my videos. I look for questions that I think would make good content, and I answer them to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the questions. Alright, so we have, how do tier spells work? Does having or learning high tier automatically increase your magic pool? So great question. Tier magic is a very complex system. I don't play D&D, but from what I understand, it's basically D&D structure. But I'll go ahead and explain, like, as far as increasing your magic pool. So the way it works in Overlord, you gain access to higher tiers for every 7 levels in magic caster classes. I think it was 7 instead of 10 because the first level cap in Yggdrasil was 70, and as the game progressed, they kept raising the level cap until it got up to 100. And as far as your magic pool is concerned, you gain access to 3 new spells for every level that you have. So basically, a level 100 magic caster can have a maximum of 300 spells. There are exceptions to this. For example, Ainz, he has a skill called Dark Wisdom, which allowed him to learn more spells. I believe he can cast a little over 700 different spells. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's right over 700. So he more than doubled his spell capacity because of his skill. But the baseline is every 7 levels you gain access to a higher tier, and then every level you gain access to 3 more spells. That's how your magic pool increases and you tier up, I guess you could say. Great question about a big system in the world of Overlord. The next question we have, can you explain about 8th floor beings in full detail that even Rubetto can't win over them? So unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. I cannot explain the 8th floor beings in full detail because we don't know full details of the 8th floor beings. The 8th floor has been shrouded in mystery for the entirety of the Overlord story. What we know about the 8th floor is that it is the strongest force in Nazarick. It is the elite fighting force. That's how Ainz worded it in the light novel. Ariel Omega, who is the leader of the Pleiades, she is the area guardian of the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary. That's something that's on the 8th floor. We have Rubetto, who is the strongest NPC in Nazarick, period. She is on the 8th floor as well. And then we also know Victim is the floor guardian of the 8th floor. But as for like all the beings and NPCs in the 8th floor, we don't know. It's one of the mysteries of Overlord, something that we might not get any more information on based on the remaining runtime of the series. But yeah, the 8th floor is the strongest floor, and I believe it was said in the light novel that like if someone could get past the 8th floor, then the guild itself, they're probably going to lose against that group. That's how powerful the 8th floor is. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer your question because we don't have any answers for the full details on the 8th floor. We have bits and pieces. Gotta have a non-answer there on that one. Okay, so next question. The only question I have is, what does the skull that Pandora uses against PDL do? So actually, the anime cut out the skull actually fighting. So I wouldn't, if you're an anime only, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't know anything about that skull. But in the light novel, volume 14, the skull actually does fight. So the light novel tells us the elemental skull is a level 68 summon. Pandora's actors summon it using the summon undead level 10th skill. The description of it has control of the 4 elements. Also, every spell that the elemental skull uses has the maximize magic meta magic enhancement on it. It has a lot of elemental resistances as well, but it has a weakness to physical attacks, in particular to bludgeoning damage, and because it is a skull, and all skeletal beings, including Ainz, have a particular weakness to bludgeoning. I believe they take double damage from bludgeoning attacks. The elemental skull is a magic magic casting summon that does actually fight in the light novel, but they cut that out of the anime, unfortunately. Great question, understandable too for anime onlys. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Can wild magic mimic the effects of world items? Yes, it can. So for those who don't know, wild magic is a system of magic in the New World that is different from tier magic. Unlike tier magic, which came from Yggdrasil, wild magic is native to the New World. It did not exist in Yggdrasil, and it operates on a completely different system than tier magic. Tier magic is powered by mana or MP. Wild magic is powered by souls, and wild magic is only available to true dragon lords and their descendants. I actually have a full video explaining wild magic. If you guys would like to check that out, I'll leave a link to it in the description. But to answer this specific question, can it mimic world item effects? Yes, it can, because wild magic can kind of do anything if you have enough souls to offer for the spells. Wild magic's kind of broken in that sense, which makes sense because tier magic has all these limits and restrictions on it because it came from a game and it was designed with game balance in mind, whereas wild magic is like a natural magic system that didn't have game mechanics into it because it existed in a real world. So once more, if you want more information on wild magic, please feel free to check out my Wild Magic Explained video. But great question. Wild magic is very, very interesting, and I wish we got more information on it in the Overlord story. Something I'd like more info on is why New Worlders dislike the spell Message, but Ainz and the rest of Nazarick use it without issue. Okay, so this kind of actually gets into New World lore here. This is a very deep dive thing. Volume 7? I think it's in volume 7 or 8. I can't remember exactly. 300 or so years ago, a long time ago in the New World timeline, there was a city that like was built around the message system. Like their whole communication network was built around message magic. Hey everyone, sorry for the break here, but this is me in post, and I realized that my answer in the next part of the video was wrong during the actual recording, so I'm correcting it right now. So what actually happened to this kingdom is that one of the biggest flaws with the New Worlders sending message is that they can't confirm who the sender is of the message spell, or if they can't confirm it, it requires a lot of effort to confirm who the sender is. And so what actually happened in this kingdom is that someone was sending false reports around to other cities, and that caused the country to kind of implode, basically. So that is why the message spell is viewed as unreliable in the New World, is because there's just no way to verify who is actually sending the messages. Basically, there's no caller ID for the message spell for New Worlders. So yep, just a little small correction there. All right, let's get back to the video. As for why it works for the Nazarick people so well, maybe it's just because they're high level. I'm not entirely sure. It might be a New World only thing, and like Ainz and Albedo and all of them just don't know about that history of like them being able to hack into the message spell. But also they use like a lot of anti-divination stuff to protect their communications. So that's something that I'm assuming the New Worlders don't do. But that's my answer to this question, is that the New Worlders basically just have a bad vibe with the message spell. They know this history. It doesn't work very well for them, and they just don't like it because of their conception about the spell. It's an interesting kind of deep dive into New World history, and also just like how their history has shaped their viewpoint on something like that. And you know, once again, showing that this is a real culture, real people, and their history affects their way of thinking, just like in real life. Very interesting question. Love questions like these. How much of a difference in power do levels make? Is it more linear, where a level 90 would only have a sizable advantage versus a level 80, or a more logarithmic, where that difference would be so far apart it would be a cakewalk? That is an interesting question, and that really goes back to Yggdrasil game design. So that's actually kind of a complicated question, because a lot of things change once you hit certain levels, you know? Like for example, super tier magic gets unlocked when you're level 70. So someone who's level 75 has access to super tier magic, whereas someone who's level 65 doesn't have access to super tier magic, and that's a big gulf to overcome. I believe there was a comment by Ainz in one of the volumes where he said that a 10 level gap would be too much to overcome. And the way I understand it is just the higher level you are, the more data you have access to for your character, and you can just do more things. And of course, this all depends on what you're spec'd into. Like a level 100 bard or a level 100 farmer would probably get beaten by like a level 85-90 warrior because they're spec'd into a combat class as opposed to a support class or something like that. Min-maxing comes into effect as well. Like, as I've said repeatedly, Ainz is not a min-maxed build, and like someone that is a lower level but is min-max could possibly challenge him if we're not taking items into account. Items also play a huge part in this. This is all like not counting items and world items and all that stuff. So yeah, levels do make a big difference because you just have access to more stuff. You have access to more skills. You have access to more spells. It's just, there's just more things you can do, and it just makes you a better fighter. So to answer your questions, levels make a sizable difference. Once we're talking about like a 5 to 10 level jump, maybe between like 1 to 2 or something like that, that wouldn't make that much of a difference, I don't think, especially if it's like someone who isn't PvP spec'd versus someone that is PvP spec'd. I wouldn't see a couple levels making that much of a difference, but a 10 level jump or something like that, according to Ainz, would be too much for them to overcome. So just going by that information, yes, levels do matter a good bit, but there's a kind of an economies of scale to it as well. So very, very good question. I like kind of going into mechanics like that. Okay, so I think this is going to be the last one, but this is a good one. What are the true forms of the Maids? When you say the Maids, I'm assuming you're referring to kind of like our Greek lettered Pallades Maids. So we'll just go according to the Greek alphabet here. So Yuri Alpha, she is a Dullahan, which means she doesn't actually have a head. And if you notice, she always wears that choker in the anime. It's to keep her head attached to her body because she's naturally headless as a Dullahan. So Yuri Alpha's true form is she's an undead. She's a walking corpse that carries her head, but instead of like carrying her head, she has it attached with her choker. Lupus Regina Beta, she is a werewolf, so her true form is obviously that of a wolf, and she's with her name Lupus. Lupus is obviously lupine, very wolf-like name there. Narbril Gamma I've mentioned in my volume 2 stuff, but she is a doppelganger, so her true form is actually very identical to that of Pandora's Actor. She is just that blank kind of just O-face thing. Doppelgangers can shapeshift, which is what her form is that she normally is in, is just her shapeshifted form. But yeah, her true form is pretty much identical to Pandora's Actors. CZ Delta, she is an automaton, so she's kind of in her true form already, but she's a robot. That's how you can view her. That's what an automaton basically is. And that's why she's so deadpan, is because she's a robot. Solution Epsilon, she is a slime. She shows that kind of, sort of, partially in the season 1 stuff. When she absorbs Zack into her body, that is her, like, pulling him in with her slime body, and she's acidic, and that's why Zack was screaming, is because he was touching her body and she's acid, so she was burning him and kind of absorbed him and melted him with her slime body. And then lastly we have Entoma Zeta, and she actually reveals her true form in the anime. She's a insect arachnoid, I believe is the actual racial term for her. So yeah, she's just a, you know, insect person or a spider person. That's how you can view her as her true form. But yeah, those are the true forms of the Pallades. They all, for the most part, kind of mask their true forms. They all kind of like can shapeshift or change their bodies somehow. Yuri Alpha with her head, obviously Narbril, she shapeshifts. Solution's kind of in the form of this young woman, but she's really just a slime. And then we have Sebas as well, whose true form is that of a dragonoid. He's a dragonoid, and he can change into this kind of draconic form as well. So all of them have like some sort of are shape-shifting, or they do something to mask their true form. And a lot of NPCs in Nazarick can do that. Shaltir can, Demiurge can, Albedo can. There's apparently a pretty popular design choice in Yggdrasil to make NPCs that can change forms. It was viewed as cool. So with that, we are going to wrap up the questions. Lots of good ones. I swear, you guys always are just keeping coming with the good discussion questions. These are always really fun to answer. I love just kind of getting into things I wouldn't get into in the light novel breakdowns. It's fun to explore, and Overlord is just such a wide world. There's so much to explore, and so that's why I like talking about this stuff. Some of the questions I answer are opinion based, and of course I want to get your opinions as well. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm going to keep this series up so long as the demand is there, so please feel free to write any questions you have, and hopefully I will get to them. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see another Q&A, please like the video to let me know, and if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It'll let you know when I post in the future, and it helps me out more than you know. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time.